All right. All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's your boy once again, Bube Simpatio Mhlaba. Welcome to all of y'all from wherever you are, whether you're in North America, whether you're in South America, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in Europe, Asia, Australia, wherever you are. Welcome once again to another episode of Football is a Religion. So right, the quarterfinals are done and dusted. Okay, they are done and dusted. But let's begin. We haven't really seen any surprising results, in this year's quarterfinals. I guess everything went just as expected, right? All the games, all the teams that we fancied winning, they won all the games, right? So there was not much of any surprise, okay? No surprises whatsoever. Although, as we're going to talk about the first of the 4 quarterfinal clashes that actually took place, was the one between the Super Eagles, the 3-time champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, locking horns with Angola, the surprise packages. So guess who actually won? Nigeria. Nigeria won by a 1-0. Again, who was it on target? Ademola Lookman. Wow. Remember, always the hype lives around people like Victor Osimhen. But again, Lookman has proved his worth once again. He has literally proved his worth. The former Everton and Leicester City man, scored his 3rd goal at the 2023 AFCON tournament. As well as Moses Simon was the one who provided him with the assist. And he actually walked away with the man of the match honors as Nigeria, made their way into the semi-finals off the back of the 1-0 victory over Angola. Right? So how the goal actually came was the fact that, when you look at Simon's trickery, his attacking prowess is what actually earned him the man of the match honor, right? And Simon has got incredible pace, his pace that, enables him to get past his marker, the skill to sneak inside of his marker, the balance to actually stay up and actually have the vision to see that Victor Osimhen had pulled away from 2 defenders before laying the ball for the arriving Lookman was proof indeed of his pudding. I meant to say. Because look at it, man. Victor Osimhen is also another brilliant player because not only for his goal-scoring prowess, but think about Victor Osimhen like this, ladies and gentlemen. Victor Osimhen is that kind of a center forward that any team would love to have on their side, due to the fact that it's not only because of his goal-scoring prowess, but it's also because of the way that he's got this ability to actually make those runs off the ball. Because as a striker, movement of the ball is very key. Because now that's how Nigeria's goal came, is that Victor Osimhen made a brilliant movement. He made some brilliant movement of the ball, which actually saw 2 defenders actually breaking away from him. And that's how Lookman was indeed in a lot of space, you understand, to actually fire his team ahead, right? And if you think about it, man, there's a lot of talking points from Nigeria's route to the semi-final in this year's AFCON 2023 tournament, right? There are so many key takeaways that I've taken out of this particular run of the Super Eagles to the last 4 of the tournament, right? Because, look, Nigeria obviously are always the favorites to always win the tournament, right? They're always the favorite. They're always the fancied opposition, due to the fact that they possess so much quality. Most of their players play at a high level in the top European leagues, right? And again, yes, they are the favorites to win this one, and perhaps they could win it because right now they will have to get through South Africa first in the semi-finals, and that's also going to be another epic clash between the Super Eagles of Nigeria as well as Bafana Bafana of South Africa. And I guess whoever wins that one will face Cote d'Ivoire, because I honestly, in my opinion, I don't see the Democratic Republic of the Congo causing any upset over the hosts in the other semi-final clash, which will be taking place on Wednesday, the 7th of February. Right. So here are the key takeaways from that particular encounter between Nigeria as well as Angola. So basically, the number one key takeaway from that particular victory for the Super Eagles of Nigeria is that the fact that they've settled a grudge, right? Because it was a grudge that has been settled by the Super Eagles of Nigeria due to the fact that, in a tournament that appears to have actually become one of a run of grudge settling for Nigeria's Super Eagles, they've actually marked their progress, to their 15th. You understand? This is now Nigeria's 15th semi-final in 19 appearances, and they've settled another score. Remember, it first started with Cote d'Ivoire, who have beaten Nigeria on multiple occasions in the tournament. And they dispatched them in the group stages, as well as Guinea-Bissau, who came over Nigeria and embarrassed the Eagles in front of their home fans. And then came Cameroon, who have inflicted a litany of deep cuts on the Super Eagles in AFCON final games. And then there was Angola. Angola were next on the radar of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, because remember, Nigeria, one of their biggest heartbreaks, came in 2005 when they were denied a ticket to the World Cup by the Palancias Negras. And this was a proper score that they needed to settle, having not met again since then. Because remember now, Nigeria didn't qualify for the 2006 World Cup due to that defeat against Angola. So they had to settle on another score. This was, again, revenge. And it was actually so sweet. And in doing so, putting the Antelopes, knocking the Antelopes out of this year's AFCON title, they even denied them a chance to reach their first semi-final, their first African Cup of Nations semi-final, because had Angola won, that would have been another history maker, them reaching their first semi-final ever in their history. And, you look at the class of 2024, right? The Super Eagles now, they've actually taken so much satisfaction from that, for their predecessors, right? And Angola were also the opposition when Nigerian midfielder Samuel Ogwaraji, collapsed and died, during a 1990 World Cup qualifier in August of 1989 in Lagos. So this victory over Angola, kind of like in ways, served as a memorial, for their fallen hero, right? So, again, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, they weren't convincing in the group stages, to say the least, right? They were really not convincing at all. But in tournament football, what's actually important is the results, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's more important. In tournament football, results are what matters, right? Due to the fact that, look, it's tournament football, right? Irregardless of the fact that you haven't been playing so well, right? But you've been getting the results, and that's what matters. You've been getting the goals. That's what matters. You haven't been conceding so many goals. That's what matters. Those are the most important stats ever. Because if you play well, but then you don't deliver the results, then it's basically shooting yourself in the foot, And again, let's talk about it. The management of Nigeria. Pasero, remember during his pre-match press conference, the Nigeria coach, the coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, Jose Pasero, he told reporters how much he had so much confidence and belief in the players. He wished for them to play, all of them, right? Although his actions throughout this tournament, it's very difficult to believe that, but it took the Portuguese manager until the 80th minute to actually make his first substitution, because now Angola had already made 4 at that time, right? And who did he actually bring on? He actually brought in Al Hassan Yusuf, for Alex Iwobi, who was so gassed at the time he was already misplacing passes. I was actually surprised that he didn't actually replace the Fulham man, because Iwobi was just not at his best in this particular encounter against Angola. He was misplacing so many passes. He was just not in the rhythm. He just didn't have that rhythm for the game. And as well as he also subbed on 7 minutes from time, he brought in Joe Aribo for Frank Onyeka. So that actually tells you a lot that, he hasn't actually been giving a lot of players game time at this tournament like he claims that he would have wanted to. But even though some of his players, his star players, haven't really been performing that well, but at least he has still been able to ground out the results of his team. And you also look at the side of Napoli talisman, Victor Osimhen, right? He was looking very leggy, that he was even bending over. And funny how he didn't get subbed off, until the 90th minute. But I guess, maybe Pizarro is not, perhaps he's not that kind of a coach who's brave, who's brave enough to make those crucial decisions, just like the coach of Ivory Coast. Because remember, the coach of Ivory Coast, he's brave to make decisions. You understand? he's not really worried about what his star players might say or whatever. No, if he feels like he has to make a substitution, he will make it. If you're not giving him a performance that he desires, that he needs from you, he'll replace you. It seems like Pizarro doesn't have that kind of he doesn't have that kind of authority, to say the least, or he doesn't possess that kind of, what can I say, that kind of belief in himself that, you know what, I need to make these changes. I need to bring on fresh blood because I can see this particular game plan is not working, so let me make those changes. You understand? I don't think he's got that, because when you look at even his starting 11 for long in the game, when he had also capable players from the bench that could actually come on and actually make a difference, he didn't use them, because he has to give others a chance to actually get more significant minutes. Unless if he doesn't trust some of his players to actually manage the game, then, the lead will always be slim. Because remember, it doesn't help for you to say one thing in press conferences, but your actions tell a different narrative. You understand? Because we're yet to see of players like Kelechi Iheanacho. We haven't seen Murphy playing yet. Terry Murphy. Because think about it. The Nigeria has actually got a special team. And it's just unfortunate that their tactical teams are not actually executing, the best that they have to, actually grind out, some much convincing results. Because now when you have got players like Kelechi Iheanacho as well as Terry Murphy, those are also another two top players. But at this point, you haven't played any of them, right? Both are very talented forwards. Iheanacho does not really have Osimhen's work rate and high press, but his hold-up play and his ability to strike from range, with next to no backlift, should actually be a valuable asset in those final stages of the game to actually keep the defenders on their toes, right? And on the side of Terry Murphy, Terry Murphy has got incredible speed, which is also another asset to the Super Eagles team, and it should also prove to be valuable under those kind of circumstances. But I guess when you have a winning team, if you feel like the team, your first 11 is the one that gets you the results, and they're the ones that are still getting you those wins, they're the ones that are still helping you to actually reach the next round of the competition, then I guess you can't change a winning lineup, like they said. And again, look, once again, Victor Osimhen, he's a good player, he's a great player, he's a great striker, I know, but he had multiple opportunities to get himself on the score sheet and he just failed to. Because, number one, his header from a Frank Onyeka lift, in the first half went high, and then he saw goalkeeper Dominic beat away another header. And with the game petering down, he had another header ruled out for offside, and then, he saw himself being denied by a block from Jonathan Batu, right? Although, like I said, he's a striker, but, sometimes as a striker, you should be converting those chances, because at this level, remember at this level of the game, if you don't convert opportunities, right, you will be punished. And that's what we saw in the game between Cape Verde. That's what we saw in the game between Morocco and South Africa. Morocco were by far better than South Africa, but because they didn't take their chances, plus they missed the penalty. That's the thing. In football, that's how it is. If you don't take your chances, you will be punished. So now that's also another worrying factor for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, because it seems like they are creating so many chances, but they are not converting those chances. Okay? Because not only was Osimhen denied opportunities, the Super Eagles created multiple chances per game, but they just failed to make them count. Because early in the second half, Zaidu Sanusi, he flashed over a shot over the bar, as well as, Kelvin Bassi also headed over, right? And in the end, Lookman's goal proved enough, but the Super Eagles, they need to really start taking their chances in the semi-final, because let me tell you something, against Bafana, right, South Africa, if Nigeria do not convert on their chances, they will be punished, because that's what Bafana does. Bafana punishes you. If you don't capitalize on your chances, you will be punished by Bafana. Ask Morocco. They will tell you. Ask Morocco. And, look, the defense from Nigeria was actually very solid, because, it was another masterclass in the defensive discipline from Nigeria, because Angola came into the tournament as the competition's leading scorers, and boasting the second highest scorer in, Gelson Dalla, Their coach promised to throw the kitchen sink at Nigeria in order to get at least a goal. But they have done all, the tournament. The Super Eagles shut all of that down, right? Allowing the Antelopes just 2 shots on target all game, actually frustrating Gelson Dalla so much that he even picked up a yellow card. And once again, William Trost Ekong was a general in the back five, directing traffic, making all the stops, denying shots, snuffing out any sort of real danger, as well as the unyielding spirit of the team's defensive effort, which starts all the way from the top, and high intensity style of play that they play, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, could actually be a telling factor in them going all the way to actually clinch the African Cup of Nations title in Cote d'Ivoire. But it's not going to be an easy one because they still have to face Bafana Bafana in the semi-finals, which will be another crunch encounter. You understand? It will be a crunch encounter. Okay, so in the second encounter of the quarterfinals of the African Cup of Nations, right? So a match day between the Democratic Republic of the Congo taking on Guinea, right? So obviously it was pretty straightforward. We knew that the 2-time champions were going to come into this game victorious. And, with that being said, it's actually interesting that this is actually their first victory of the African Cup of Nations, right, in regulation time. Remember, last time they didn't win the game against Egypt. It had to be settled via the lottery of a penalty shootout. So the Democratic Republic of the Congo did secure their first victory of this year's African Cup of Nations, right? And how did they do it, right? They did it in style, with a comfortable 3-1 victory over Guinea, with Chancellor captain Chancellor Mbemba, Yuan Wissa, as well as Arthur Masuaku, securing a victory for the Democratic Republic of the Congo, sending them into the semi-finals of this year's African Cup of Nations. Well, so what actually happened is that the Democratic Republic of the Congo fought back from a goal down to actually beat Guinea and reach the 2023 African Cup of Nations semi-finals, right? So Mohamed Bayo's early penalty, put Guinea in front, but Captain Charleston Mbemba, the former Newcastle United centre-back, equalized shortly after. And then Brentford striker Yuan Wissa then scored from the spot himself to actually put the Leopards in front for the first time in the game. And then former West Ham United left-back's clever free kick, Arthur Masuaku, actually baffled Ibrahim Kone in the Guinea goal to actually cap off a great victory for the Democratic Republic of the Congo, right? And with that being said is that, look, they came from behind, right, to actually win 3-1, securing a place in the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations. And now the Congolese will either face Mali or the host Ivory Coast, who play on Saturday evening. And with that, when you look at how the game actually began, the game was actually so, enjoyable from the very first whistle, because it got off to a frantic start, when Guinea were adamantly appealing for a penalty in the first minute, before a defensive mix-up, at either end, presented Yuan Wissa with a golden opportunity from 8 yards out. But the Brentford man dragged his effort wide, surprisingly, and as the half went on, the game settled slightly up until Guinea were awarded a penalty, as unfortunately, Congo captain, the former Newcastle United defender, Chancellor Mbemba, he was adjudged to have pushed Guinea striker Mohamed Bayo in the box, right? And shortly afterwards, after a lengthy delay, Bayo kept his cool. After a lengthy delay by VAR, VAR had to check it and actually confirmed that it was a spot kick. And guess what? From the resulting penalty, Bayo, he kept his cool and he confidently dispatched the penalty. And however, Guinea's lead, would actually be short-lived. It didn't even last long, as the DR Congo captain, Chancellor Mbemba, he would redeem himself as he found himself at the back post, and he actually brought the ball down before smashing it into the roof of the net, with the finish any player would be proud of. That's the perfect way to redeem yourself after actually conceding a penalty, right? And following the mandatory water break, the game's pace actually dropped, and both sides looked happy to go in level, right? And you look at how the second half was also played. The second half of the game, was as much as slower affair being, broken down, due to like constant fouls, substitutions. But yet, again, we knew that the Democratic Republic of the Congo, they consistently looked more threatening as expected. They were more threatening, and eventually they were to be rewarded soon, because they took the lead, through the game's second penalty when substitute Silas Vumba, remember he did get the goal against Morocco in the group stages. He was actually tripped after being on the pitch just for a matter of seconds. And guess who converted? From the resulting 12 yards, the Brentford striker Wisa, converted the penalty, giving the Democratic Republic of the Congo the lead for the first time on the night. And the game was won in emphatic style in the final 10 minutes when former West Ham United defender Arthur Masuaku, he actually was so clever. That was just clever. That was a very slick play from the former West Ham United defender, because he was actually able to spot the fact that the Guinea goalkeeper, was off his line, and then he struck the free kick with so much beauty, so much precision, and so much slickness into the near post. And this result actually sees the Democratic Republic of the Congo march on to the semifinals for the first time since 2015. And, another thing is that I would like us to actually get into the fact that, look, due to the fact that now Congo, the two-time winners, they are now into the semifinals. Remember, what's actually interesting to note is that the two-time champions, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, have not been haven't won the AFCON title, since 1974, and they've reached the semifinals only twice since then, right? Now the Leopards, they look steady, if not electric so far in this tournament, and they have, drawn all their games prior to this particular encounter. Like I said, this is their first victory, and funny how now, before this encounter against Guinea, remember the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Leopards, they failed to score even more than once in a particular encounter. They failed to score more than once. And in this particular encounter, they actually scored 3 goals. They were able to score 3 times, right? And, they've actually tangled with giants like Egypt and Morocco, proving that they can mix it, with the favorites, but it's a matter of them being able to go all the way. Can they do so? To be honest, in my opinion, I don't think they will be able to, because if they play against Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivorians, I don't see the Democratic Republic of the Congo actually defeating the Ivorians, the hosts, because currently the hosts, they've learned from their lesson. They've learned from that group stage exit, and they've been given a second chance at life. So I don't think the Elephants will actually let this slip in their backyard, because expectations are high from them. So I heavily doubt that the Democratic Republic of the Congo will actually pull off a major upset against the Elephants. But I guess in football, you never know. In football, you never know. You can never underestimate anyone at this level of the game. And credit must also go once again to Chancellor Mbemba, because the Marseille man, and the captain of the national team, he got off to a rough start, on Friday's game. He got off to a rough start, but he actually was able to redeem himself after conceding that penalty. He gave away a soft penalty, but the response from him, the redemption mode, that set him up to actually get his team's crucial equalizer, it should be applauded, because that's how a captain is supposed to lead. A captain should be leading by example, should be the front man up there, and just 7 minutes later, he had his side level, with a rocket of a strike, and, he was commanding throughout the rest of the game. Like I said, with Guinea, they may not have been presented the toughest test ever, but, Charles Mbemba, he met every cross, and he gave the performance of a national captain, a national team hero, because he could have easily have crumbled, but that's what is required at this level of the game. You need that strength, you need the mental strength, you need the willingness to keep going. You understand? Irregardless of the fact that the odds might be against you, but have that willingness to keep going, to say, what, I can do this. I made a mistake, but I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let this faze me. And that's what we saw from the Democratic Republic of the Congo captain, Chancellor Mbemba. What a great example. Oh, why I love football, ladies and gentlemen, why I love it so much is because Football is so unpredictable in its nature. It's very unpredictable. And you just never know what to expect. You might be expecting a certain different end result, but it never turns out to be what you expect. And sometimes that's the beauty of football. And even though sometimes it goes against you, maybe it happens against your team, or things just don't go your way in the game of football, but it is what it is. You understand? It's just that right now, that's what makes you enjoy football so much. That's why it's the beautiful game, because of the fact that it's so unpredictable. Its unpredictability is what actually makes it so special, because you look at this game, the game between Ivory Coast, the hosts, and Mali. What an enterprising game that was. So entertaining, emphatic. I just don't know what to say, because sometimes when I think about it, I even run out of words, because Ivory Coast, produced another amazing African Cup of Nations escaped. They have escaped, on the brink of defeat. They managed to pull something out of nothing with a man down. Umar Diakite netted a 122nd minute winner, which actually sent the 10-man Elephants into the semifinals. At whose expense? Their neighbors Mali, leaving their neighbors Mali so heartbroken after they've given it their all. Because you think about it, Cote d'Ivoire had an unchanged lineup coming into this game. It was an unchanged lineup from the team that played against Senegal, right? And Senegal actually, Cote d'Ivoire, tend to think of it, they played the majority of the game at a numerical disadvantage, as, their defender, Odilon Kasenuo, he was actually sent off for 2 first-half fouls, on Lassine Sinayoko, who was proving to be a handful to that Ivory Coast defense. And then they fell behind to a Nene Douglas, classy curler, in the second half of the game. And from that particular point onwards, for the fact that they were at a numerical disadvantage, you thought that, you'd immediately think that if ever Mali were to find the back of the net, it will be game over for the hosts. But hey, like I said, football is so unpredictable. You never know what could actually happen, because think about it. From that particular moment in time, the Elephants equalized right on the brink of regulation time. And through who? Simon Adingra. It was such a great finish from the Brighton man, after some great combination play on the right-hand side between himself and Kessie, sending him into the box, playing some 1-2s with Seko Fofana, because it came from a fact that goal actually happened from the fact that Seko Fofana took a shot at goal, which was actually blocked, and then it ricocheted off the Mali defender, and then Adingra was there to capitalize and, actually finish off and actually sent, the hosts in a rapture. The crowd, the home crowd was in a frenzy. They reacted in a frenzy. And then they won it again, in the last kick of the game. Last kick of extra time, when Diakite diverted home Seko Fofana's shot. And you remember now, Fofana even celebrated as though it was him who actually found the back of the net. But I wouldn't blame him, because, he took the shot, and that was a great finish from Diakite. He was not even looking, Diakite. He just, you understand, he just diverted it. He flicked it, and he found the back of the net. And then Diakite, I'm sure it was just about emotions, because basically Diakite, he left the field with mixed emotions, right? And, however, like that second yellow card, he received a second yellow, for removing his shirt, which means that he won't play in the semi-final game against the Democratic Republic of Congo, alongside Christian Kouame. Christian Kouame also won't be playing for Cote d'Ivoire in the semi-final clash against Christian Kouame won't also be playing in the semi-final clash against the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Like I said, it was not an unchanged lineup, right? Cote d'Ivoire did make a few changes. Yeah, we saw Christian Kouame coming in. We also saw Nicolas Pepe also making a start again. We also saw, basically it was just the midfield and the defense that was unchanged. But the front three was changed, because we could see Diakite did not start. We saw also Sankare was also out. He did not start. We also saw Ulokuzan. We also saw what's his name? It was Diakite, it was Sangare as well as Crasso. Jean-Philippe Crasso also did not start the game, and it really did not matter because remember Crasso as well as Sangare, they suffered minor injuries. So I don't think they will actually be out for long because I'm sure they will be available for selection in that semi-final clash against the Democratic Republic of Congo. And you look at, this particular encounter, there's just so much to talk about from this encounter because the final whistle, it yielded unsavory scenes as several Mali players surrounded the referee. Mohamed Adel remonstrating with the official. Hamari Traore was shown a red card for, taking his protest too far. And it was difficult to see what the Eagles were complaining about because, there appeared to be little to nothing wrong with the goal, that sparked wild scenes of celebration at the Orange Bath Stade de la Barques. You understand? And a free kick broke to Fofana on the edge of the area, and his shot flew through a crowded, goal mouth, and Diakite was there with his back to goal, instinctively, struck out a foot, to flick the ball past the Mali goalkeeper, Jiju Diarra, right? And the quick thinking by the forward for French club Reims, keeps the hosts hopes of a third AFCON title alive after barely, it was a barely believable rout, throughout the entire competition, and that has happened, that has seen them on the brink of elimination on several occasions. But yet, Ivory Coast in typical, style, they always find an escape route. You understand? Because you think about Ivory Coast, they came from, they after the group stage, disaster, having come through the group stage disaster, via the skin of their teeth, despite 2 defeats, sacking their manager Jean-Louis Gasset mid-tournament in the process, the knockout stages have just been as, hair-raising for the hosts. And under interim boss, Emerse Faye, they came from behind with another late goal, to force extra time and penalties to beat defending champions Senegal in the last 16. But even that drama was completely eclipsed by Saturday's events at Bouake. It's just, I just don't know. I can't comprehend it. Like, how does a team come back from a goal down with 10 men playing with the man short? Especially when they've been dominated throughout the game. Because Ivory Coast were dominated throughout the game. And I don't think Cote d'Ivoire actually expected Mali to actually come at them at that pace that they were coming at them, right? And another thing is Mali were dominant from the very first whistle. So it was only a matter of time until you knew that if they score a goal, it will be game over. But funny how the 2-time champions, they managed to, claw their way back. And you ask yourself, how does this even happen? That just shows you the beauty of football because, fortune had again appeared to be on their side. When, Kosunu blocked Siko Niakate's shot, with an outstretched hand in the box, but escaped punishment because the Mali man was in an offside, during the build-up. And from that particular point onwards, it only took like several minutes to actually clear up the confusion. But when play actually restarted, Kasanuo, allowed Sinayoko to get on the wrong side of him and actually bundle him over. Only for Yahia Fofana to brilliantly save, Adama Nos Traore spot kick. You understand? That was a brilliant save from the goalkeeper. And you think about the drama in this game. 2 red cards, a penalty saved, a last-minute goal, 2 last-minute goals being scored, a brilliant long-range effort being scored by Mali. Hey, it was a crazy game. A disallowed goal. A lot just happened in this game. Because that was a brilliant save by Yahia Fofana. What a brilliant save it was to actually keep out, the spot kick from Adama Nos Traore. And from that particular point onwards, the hosts, their luck seemed to have finally run out. Eventually, when centre-back, Casanuo was booked for a penalty incident, and then he actually received the second yellow card for tripping, Sinayoko once again, who was just proving to be a handful, a nightmare to the Bayer Leverkusen defender. But the person who I blame in that particular instance is Seri. Seri, with all his experience in that midfield, he's the one who gave away possession. and cheaply. You don't give away possession in that middle of the park, especially with a player with all the experience that he has. You should have expected him to make a better decision there. And I can only say that after they fell a man short, Cote d'Ivoire, they defended diligently. They restricted Mali to efforts from distance, and one of which actually paid off with just under 20 minutes to go. As Dogelis is cut in from the left, to actually find the top corner to put the Malians ahead was a brilliant strike. That was such a brilliant strike. And you could feel that, this is game over. Mali have won the game. They through to the last four, right? And this could have been an emphatic victory for them, because remember, they've struggled against Cote d'Ivoire several times. Whenever they've met, Mali have lost so many games against Cote d'Ivoire, so this could have been, an emphatic victory for them, and groundbreaking, and history was in the making for them. But you look at the elephants once again. It's just about having that sense of character for the big occasion, And that's exactly what Cote d'Ivoire has, because remember, home ground advantage also did play a big role in them actually making it to this far, even after that disastrous group stage campaign. As well as you also have to look at the fact that, the Ivorians, right, that 12-man advantage, they've certainly made it, they've used it to great use, right? Because unbowed by the fact that they were down to 10 men and they were a goal down, they responded admirably, because Diakite and Wilfred Singo, both going close with headers, before Seko Fofana's shot ricocheted, perfectly for the Brighton forward, Adingra to actually step, Ivory Coast level from 8 yards out. And from that particular point on, they continued to actually fashion the better chances in extra time. Because we saw Borussia Dortmund striker Sebastian Haller, he headed against the bar, before, with time almost running up, another shootout was actually looming. But, Diakite dramatically settled matters, within the last minute of the game. That was basically the last kick of the game, last kick in extra time. And, however, coming into that game, they will have to do without him, because now, currently, he's also on suspension. Diakite is suspended for the game against the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as Serge Aurier and Christian Kouame, because Christian Kouame and Serge Aurier, they each collected a booking for the second successive game, so which means that they will miss the next game against the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And unfortunately for Mali, I'm sure they are heartbroken, and they have every reason to be heartbroken, because now, that dreadful run against the Ivorians continues. Their neighbors, Ivory Coast. It continues due to the fact that now Mali, will almost certainly have to answer to the African Footballing Authority, after, the disgraceful post-match scenes, with the referee, and, they only have themselves to blame for the exit, because they were in complete control of the game. Plus, they had a one-man advantage, and they also had a one-goal advantage. What they should have done is just to capitalize on their chances. They were supposed to manage the game more effectively and more efficiently to actually frustrate their opponents, and they didn't do that, and they only have themselves to blame for not making it to the next round. And look, Mali, again, they never really threatened to capitalize on their numerical advantage. They sat back nervously, even after, Douglas, gave them the lead. And from then on, they only created one real opening of note, when a dangerous, Douglas extra time ball, came across the box, but it was turned, into his own net by Nottingham Forest defender Willy Bolly, right? And from that particular moment in time, the Eagles currently, they will, of course, look back, on that early penalty miss by the Hull City winger Traore, although it was an excellent save from Fofana, plunging quickly, low and actually at full strength to actually, keep the left-footed efforts penalty spot at bay. And Mali, you think about it, ironically, they topped their group unbeaten, and they had never lost before in an African Cup of Nations quarterfinals. They've won all 5 of their previous quarterfinals games, right? But now they are left to reflect on yet another defeat by their West African neighbors, because now currently Mali have now lost 13 of their past 19 meetings between Ivory Coast as well as Mali, and they've also lost 16 defeats. They've lost 16 times to the Ivory Coast at the African Cup of Nations. as well as look, remember now, what I meant to say is that remember Mali also lost in that last 16 encounter to Ivory Coast in 2019. During the 2019 African Cup of Nations, they lost to the Ivorians in that last 16 encounter. And this result, will be a bitter pill to swallow, for the coach of Mali, Eric Chel's side, right? Because, right, Mali, have only beaten Ivory Coast just twice in their previous 19 meetings between the neighboring countries, which is a disaster. But on this one, they have themselves to blame. They honestly and truly have themselves to blame. They could have done better. They could have capitalized on their chances. They were supposed to. Okay, so Cape Verde nil, South Africa nil, right? So South Africa are into the semi-finals of the 2023 African Cup of Nations after a penalty shootout win over Cape Verde. After the two sides failed to score in 120 minutes, the shootout proved an equally low-scoring affair as only one of the first six was converted, but Bafana Bafana goalkeeper Ronwen Williams, he saved 4 spot kicks. His side edged through 2-1. So Ronwen Williams was the hero, bafethu. Ronwen Williams, aye. Asimshayeleni izandla bafethu. Let's clap hands for him. Aye. That was just like, it reminds me of Itumeleng Khune at his prime. It reminds me of Khune so much at his prime, because Ronald Williams was the hero as South Africa, edged Cape Verde 2-1 in a tense penalty shootout to actually reach the African Cup of Nations semi-finals, right? The Bafana Bafana goalkeeper saved 4 spot kicks in a dramatic climax in Yamoussoukro, as his nation booked a last 4 date with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. What can I say about this game, man? Is that it was pretty one-sided, to be honest. It was pretty one-sided because Cape Verde, they dominated. You understand? They dominated in terms of play. They dominated in terms of speed, dribbling, even chances created. They had the better of the chances. You remember, even though they were kind of like chances were few and far between, over 120 minutes, at the start of Charles Conan Bani de Yamoussoukro, though like you might say that the best chances, actually fell to Cape Verde because, Williams came to the rescue, to actually keep out, that Gary Rodriguez effort in the 56th minute, and he actually produced a fantastic reflex save to actually deny Gilson Benchimol in stoppage time. And Vosina, produced heroics on the other end, as early in extra time, toting both Mihlali Mayambela's effort as well as Evidence Mahopa. And then the match had to come down to the lottery, the old school lottery of a penalty shootout. So you look at the penalty shootout, right? You look at this particular encounter, before we go to the penalty shootout, you look at this particular encounters that, in as much as Bafana Bafana won, I'm very excited for that. But you look at the side of Cape Verde, unfortunately, selfish play is also what cost them, from Bebe. Yeah, Bebe was very selfish. He's a selfish player, to say the least. That's one thing I don't like about selfish players, especially players who are always overhyped, who come into these games with that mentality of being the star of the team. Yes, you might be the star of the team, but you need to understand that you are playing as a team. You're not playing by yourself, okay? You might be getting all the media attention, etc., but one thing you must not forget is that football is a team effort. So that's one thing that Bebe forgot. He clearly forgot that football is a team effort because he was very selfish, I must say. He was very greedy. There were times where he could have played a pass, many times where you found the Cape Verde players were in acres of space, but Bebe chose, to actually play by himself and actually go for goal. I mean, sometimes he would even want to shoot from a ridiculous, range. Sometimes he would even want to shoot from an angle. How do you want to score from a tight angle, from an acute angle, knowing that that near post is covered, knowing that even defenders have that post? I mean, that's just selfish play, man. I mean, baby, bro. I mean, I was actually glad that even the coach replaced Opesitao because Opesitao sometimes also has that kind of tendency of just being selfish, not wanting to play for the team, because you don't need selfish play, man. You just don't need it because especially at this level of the game, selfish play is very costly, and that's what actually cost Cape Verde big time. Because Now the game went to penalty shootouts. Cape Verde could have won the game because they were far better than South Africa. Luckily, Teboho Mokoena as well as Mutobi Mvala, the Sundowns players, they were successful for South Africa. As well as the fact that Brian Tixera was the only person who was on target for Cabo Verde. And then Williams denied Bebe, Willie Semedo, Laros Duarte, as well as Patrick Andrade, to actually send Bafana Bafana into the last four. And the talking point does come from the fact that, Cape Verde, they paid the penalty because, a penalty shootout stood between Cape Verde and a first appearance at the African Cup of Nations semi-finals. However, they were unable to capitalize with four of their players, unsuccessful from the spot, as well as the fact that they had the better of the chances in regulation time. And Bafana now, they were aided by Williams' heroics. And South Africa now have held their nerve, to actually progress to the last four for the first time since 2000. That's the year I was born. I was born in 2000. So Bafana making history. That was the last time they qualified for the semi-finals of the African Cup of Nations in the year I was born, which is 2000. And guess what? The man of the match, obviously well-deserved, Ronwen Williams. It just had to be him because he made his magnificent reflex save, from denying Chilson, in the second half, of stoppage time, felt like it could be a pivotal moment in the context, as well as the fact that he stood up for his country under the most intense pressure, guessing correctly, to actually keep out 4 Cape Verde penalties and actually secure a semi-final berth, right? But Cape Verde, unfortunately, they did not deserve to lose the game. They played well. They were far better than Bafana. But look, I guess football, we need luck. Luck will work for us. And congratulations to Bafana. We're actually looking forward to that thriller between Bafana and Nigeria. It's like the World War III of Africa. We're looking forward to it. Azishe.